Number one seed in the Eastern Conference, the Boston Bruins. March, was it a big surprise that Boston finished number one in the conference?
Well, of course. Who would have saw that coming? They finished 8th last year, and all of a sudden from 8th to 1st. A lot of it had to do with their young guys stepping up. Tim Thomas playing way above his caliber. And just it's not a surprise. There's always going to be new surprising teams every year. And why not Boston this year?
Randy, let's talk about Washington. The Capitals finished number two. Last year, they were in a similar position, a young team, Alexander Ovechkin, with an unproven goalie now this year in Jose Theodore, who a couple years ago was the best there was in the NHL. A lot of people are saying the biggest weakness out there right now is Mr. Theodore himself.
Well, it seems to got his confidence back. He's playing better now than he was first year in Washington, and he's rebounded from where he was in Colorado a few years ago when he lost his starting job to Peter Buda.
So let's talk about the first round matchups. Let's talk about number one versus number 8. So we have the number 1 Boston Bruins against the number 8 Montreal Canadiens. This matchup almost came to fruition, almost didn't come to fruition. It was fate of the worlds. And these teams have hooked up, I think it's 24 times in the past 70 years. Montreal's got the big record, I think 24 or 7. Montreal's dominated the Boston Bruins in playoffs recently. In the early 90s, Boston came back, and that was a different story. But let's talk about this, because last year it was the opposite way. Montreal finished number 1, Boston finished number 8, and it went to a Game 7 in Montreal where Montreal won 5-0. So let's talk about how this situation came to be. Let's talk about your prediction for Montreal versus Boston, why you think so-and-so is going to win, and Randy, you can tell me who you think is going to win.
It's going to go to 7. I'm thinking Montreal has a good chance. They're coming in. They're starting to pick up a little bit. They fell off for a while. They got Snyder back. They thought he'd be gone for the playoffs. They missed 2 games. So they're looking pretty strong. They're just a week down in the middle, but if Lang comes back during the series, then they have a chance.
Now, you mentioned Lang. Now, Lang has been actually... they say he's got about another 4 or 5 weeks left of recovery, so they say you won't see him even on skates practicing until the second round. So I don't think it's realistic for Robert Lang to come back. But then again, the question that really comes to matter is: does Montreal have a second line? Thomas Plekanec, just nothing is clicking with him. This is a big issue for the Montreal Canadiens. There's no secondary scoring right now. You have the big line of Tanguay, Kovalev, and Koivu, but what else? You have Latendresse stepping up, but what else for Montreal?
Well, Latendresse come back, which is big for Montreal.
Yeah.
But the Consistent brothers have fallen out. Well, Sergei's injured right now.
Yeah.
So they don't have that lot of scoring at all in the second line, and they've had trouble with the defenseman getting injured as well.
And it's also Carey Price. What do you do with Carey Price? Is he the goalie that he was last year? Last year, I think he had a better year than he did. Right now, he's one of those character goalies where I find that if he gets injured or is out of the game for a little bit, comes back in, takes him at least 3 or 4 games to even get back into the mix. So this is where we're at right now with Carey Price. Do you see Carey Price being a huge factor for the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, he's an emotional goaltender. He's a young kid still, and if he gets a little bit thrown off his game, then he's going to have trouble. But if he can gain the confidence he had at the beginning of the year or last year, then he has a chance to take some games.
Now, March, you were telling me before that you think this is going to be all Boston, that they're going to they're going to wipe out the Montreal Canadiens completely.
Well, first of all, let's get something straight here. This is Montreal and Boston. No matter who's going to win, you know it's going to be an exciting series.
So you're saying throw away the number 1, number 8, doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter.
Montreal versus Boston, anything could happen.
That doesn't matter. But you got to remember last year too. You know what? Boston took them to 7, but Montreal still won. And I think Boston has too much going on for them right now. Carey Price is going to be the key if they're even going to be in this series. If he doesn't stand up or Halak or any of the goaltending comes to play, it's not even going to go to 5 or 6 games. I say Boston in 6. And sorry Montreal fans, it's done for you guys this year. The 100th year, it's sad. It's the 100th year that you think you can go further in the playoffs and stuff. It is not going to happen. Sorry, Montreal fans. Chicago all the way. Sorry.
Nope. A lot of people are talking about Bob Gainey's moves and his indirect moves and his non-moves during the trade deadline. Obviously, we have Matthew Schneider that was picked up. We obviously, as well as Matthew Schneider, that someone that everybody's overlooking is Glenn Metropolitan. Now, last year was kind of a role reversal because Glenn Metropolitan was on the Boston Bruins. And he was the pest that everybody hated because he was a hard forechecker. He was always in your face. He just didn't quit. And now Montreal has that to their advantage. Do you see some of the moves that the Montreal Canadiens made or didn't make are effective? Matthew Schneider, for instance, playing during an injury right now. Andrei Markov will be back, and I'm saying this right now. He will be back for the first game of the Stanley Cup Finals. The Stanley Cup Playoffs, I should say, but they will make the finals.
You're talking about Matthew Schneider. No offense, he's a 40-year-old. In a 7-game series, his body will not be able to take it and all that. This is not the 80s. Matthew Schneider had his time.
Well, what about
He's
Mark
a good
Recchi?
fit-in. Hold on here. That's fine.
Well,
But
Mark
he's a-
Recchi's
he's a
the same
forward.
thing then. Come on.
Matthew Schneider on defense is going to take a lot more work in a 7-game series. Boston has some big, tough players. They're going to wear him down. Glenn Metropolitan, give me a break here. He's a fourth-line player. Once again, Montreal, the key is going to be their goaltending if they get anywhere in the series.
Okay, so give me...
And sorry, the big thing they had to do was get a big-time center like Jokinen, Kachuk. I know he wasn't available, but I'm sure there was other guys out there. They did not do that. They're just going to have to go. They're a small team. They're not going to do it. Boston will outmuscle them. Even if it goes 7 games, they will not last and beat Boston.
Unless you're saying...
Carey Price will have to
Price.
carry them through. Or Halak. Even Halak. Like, sometimes you get these series where these backup goalies, like Cam Ward did 3 or 4 years ago, come out of nowhere and win the series for you.
Cam Ward replaced Martin Gerber.
Right.
Who's now...
That is the only chance they're going to have.
2005. Yeah. That was a long time ago.
It's kind of funny because Martin Gerber has a Stanley Cup ring. So my prediction for the Montreal Canadiens will be the Montreal Canadiens in 7. I think it's going to be a surprise this whole year in terms of who finishes number 1, who finishes number 8. I think it's going to be a surprise. Let's talk more. And the key to success for the Montreal Canadiens is definitely going to be the second line scoring. The secondary scoring, I think, is going to pick up during that series. I think it's going to be a very physical series, but I think that the key components of Bob... Because here's an interesting thing. Claude Julien, the coach of the Boston Bruins, was fired by Bob Gainey. So now we're kind of, looking through the glass window here in perspective, and you're saying Claude Julien right now is trying to coach the GM who fired him. So this is a very personal series. You have Lucic, who got in a huge fight with Komisarek, took Komisarek out for a couple of months earlier on in the season. Now they're back. LaRocque's in the lineup. It's going to be a very physical series, and this is going to be, I think, probably everybody will have to agree here. It's going to probably be the most entertaining first-round series we're going to see.
I think every series is going to be very entertaining. I think this is the one year that you can honestly say all series are very tight. There's not what one series can you say that right now you can say, you know what, this team will definitely beat that other team. There's no way. There's pros and cons to every team going in. It's a new season. Yeah, does Montreal have a chance? Of course they do, just like the other 16 teams. They all have a chance. But going in, forward and stuff, I think it's going to be, you can't say it. You're a Montreal fan. I'm a Chicago fan. Of course, we want that to be the best series of I think every series is going to be so tight and so hard. Like, you do not know who's going to come out of every series, even from 1 to 8 or 2 to 7. But you know what? You're right. Because of the rivalries and stuff like that, will Montreal and Boston be a great series? I think so too. Fantastic.
And the fact remains, it's very interesting that half of the building at the Boston TD Gardens is sold out. It's sold out, but half of the building is Montreal fans. So Montreal, I think, definitely has an advantage of some of that crowd. They say that having those extra people out there does have a little bit of effect. Will it have an effect? Well, that's our pick for the Montreal and Boston series. Will we be right? Will we be wrong? 2 for Montreal, 1 for Boston. We'll see.